Good morning. Today is episode 9 of the Men on Fire videos that we've been doing, and today we're going to be talking to Pastor Andrew about why we're going to be doing mission trips. So I'm here with Pastor Andrew, and we're going to kind of discuss why we as a church may want to be going on these mission trips. So my first question to Pastor Andrew is, why do we go on a mission trip rather than use the mission field around us? Why is it something that's important for us to do as a church?
All right, so that's a good question. Why do we do missions when we support missions? So why would we go on a mission trip when we are giving money to missionaries who are already on the field? I think we do both. So don't misunderstand and think, oh, we're not going to support missionaries anymore who are on the field all the time. That is not true. We want to continue to give to Lottie Moon, Annie Armstrong, North American Mission Board, all the different mission organizations that we give to. We want to, in fact, continue to increase our giving and be faithful in that area. We have now a partnership with 2 missionaries in Thailand that are on the field, or 2 mission organizations. We have the Ricky Salmon Ministries in Bangkok that we're going to begin to partner with financially, prayer-wise, updates and all that. And also the Bandit and his ministry, the Asian Rural Life Development Foundation in northern Thailand. So 2 different mission organizations in Thailand that we're going to support. And by the way, kind of breaking news, the church, whenever you give to the church, 10% of what you give goes to missions. Nice. So we're going to give 1% to the Ricky Salmon's ministry, and 1% of that 10% will be going to Asian Rural Life Development Fund. The remaining 8% will go to the Brevard Baptist Association and then the cooperative program of the Southern Baptists. So anyway, we continue to give to missionaries, and then they're on the field full time. So obviously they need support so they can do what God called them to do. But then the question remains, why would we go on a mission trip as a church when we have missionaries that are there full time? There's a couple of reasons. The biggest reason really is for us as a church. For us as individuals. Whenever you go on a mission trip, the missionaries on the field are able to do things they may not be able to do without some support, some extra resources of people helping them out. So if you ask any missionary, whenever they have a mission team come, they go, man, it advanced the work in ways that we would not have been able to do. We were able to reach into new areas. I just got back from Thailand, and we were working with missionaries there, and they said we were able to do things and get into some communities we weren't able to get into before. Advance the gospel in new ways because you were here, and now there's these 3 new areas that we've been able to begin to work in. So that's part of why we do it, is to help the missionaries there. But like I said a second ago, the bigger reason is for us. For when we go on a mission trip, we are on mission. And for that time, whether it's a week or a long weekend, whatever it is, we're saying, I am fully devoted at this point just to be a missionary, just to serve as a missionary, and to serve people in other places, that may be in other economic situations or in a crisis or disaster, whatever it is, and we are trying to help them as missionaries, and it helps us see, I can do this. I can be a missionary. I can live a life on mission. We come back to the church, and then it spreads through the rest of the church because we encourage the rest of the church, saying, look what God did. Look what, just spending a few hours serving people, look at the difference it makes, not only in their life, but also in our life. Philippians 1:6, Philemon 1:6, he says, I want everyone to be active in sharing their faith because it convinces us of the good things that we have in Jesus. So in other words, not when we go out on mission or we go out and witness and share our faith, serve other people, not only does it help them, it also convinces us of all the good things we have in Jesus. So that's why a mission trip is good for a church, because not only does it help the missionaries, help the people that we're serving, it also helps us understand what it is to live a life on mission.
I know for me, going on mission trips, when I went to Cuba, it was very rewarding for me. I'd never been on a mission trip till I think I was about 52, 53 years old, maybe a little younger. but I never knew what that meant going on a mission trip. I know we have a mission trip or a mission field around us, and that we can reach a lot of people in Port St. John, but there's something about going on this trip that kind of touches your heart. It makes you feel like you're making a difference in God's world, even though we should be that bold here. So why, as a church, should we, as individuals, want to go out on a mission trip to somewhere like Thailand? I kid around with a pastor about going on vacation to Thailand, but when you go on these mission trips, he wasn't on vacation. It's out there doing the work of God, and you get fulfilled just as much as they get fulfilled as us coming over there and sharing the Word of God. So why do we want to plan a mission trip, Pastor, to go out and share the gospel with people, whether we do it here domestically or go over to Thailand or go somewhere else? Why do you feel it's necessary for us to take on that kind of mission?
All right, so why are we saying as a church we would go on a mission trip? Part of it's for the reasons I've already said. It helps us personally, helps the church, helps the community that we're serving. It's all about serving the Lord. Besides, you get a trip. I mean, come on. No, okay. It's not a vacation thing. It's getting to go serve and to work somewhere, and the joy of being able to do that. And so right now as a church, we're planning kind of two layers to it. We would like to organize a couple of mission trips. The first one, just to kind of dip our toe in the waters of mission work, would be a more domestic trip. Atlanta is one of the places we're looking at, maybe up in Apalachicola area, the Appalachian area, or something like that, something domestic. So, and that'll probably be early next year. It'll be easy, accessible, and that it's just a short drive. We can do this in a week or a long weekend, and just kind of get a taste for missions. So that's kind of the entry level. But I would also like to plan in a couple of years to take a team over to Thailand. Again, that's a bigger trip. The biggest thing is getting there. It's a long flight, and the flight's kind of expensive. But once you're there, it's amazing. The mission work is amazing. So that's more of a long-term goal. So the idea is to help us be a mission-minded church, okay? Our vision statement is we are a disciple-making church that's on a mission. So that phrase, on a mission, we want to be serious about. We want to be mission-minded. We want to be a church that not only gives to missions, but also participates in missions. And we do have missions right here, as Joe said. We have the thrift store. We have the food pantry. We have the bread ministry. We have all the different things that we do here in the church, just as a church, that are the Harvest Festival, Vacation Bible School, all these different things that we do that are missions right here in Port St. John. But I think we kind of look at it in layers, that we need to be mission-minded here, but also beyond here, to places that have yet to hear the gospel. So it's kind of keeping that mission-minded movement, living on mission in front of us as a church.
Pastor, when we go on these mission trips, I'm kind of wondering, what kind of shape do people need to be in when they go on these mission trips? Because I know when I went to Cuba, it was kind of some demanding work and stuff, but I also realized that it's not my walk to judge what other people are doing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Let them do what they're supposed to do. So do you think that there's a physical part that people have to be concerned with when we go on these mission trips? And should they be thinking about this before we go? I know that we need to really, if we're doing mission trips, kind of think about what's going on and prepare for it before we go, prepare our hearts. So what do you think about the physical aspect of it?
All right, good question. So the two mission trips we have in mind right now, the domestic mission trip and the overseas mission trip, obviously have a certain amount of physical demands, okay? The domestic trip obviously would be easier. It's a long drive, probably a 7-hour drive in a bus, something like that, to get to where we're going. It's probably going to be somewhere in Georgia, either, like I said, the Appalachia region, Valdosta, or Atlanta, depending on which exactly how we narrow it down. But the work there will be a variety of work. It's going to be at a ministry center. Any of those will be. They're with the North American Mission Board, and they're basically an urban ministry center. So there'll be a variety of work. For some, it might be we just need a grandma to sit down with some kids and tell them a Bible story. For others, it might be they need some fences repaired. So kind of there's a variety of work that can be done there, but there's a certain level of physical fitness, and I say that as a fat guy, that needs to be in mind. Okay, so that you're not a liability, that you're able to help with the project, okay, at whatever level you're able to participate with. So, I'm not going to sit here and judge and say whether some people are healthy enough or not, but that is a consideration to have in mind is, could I make the trip? Would I be able to add to the trip? Or am I going to be something that holds back? Obviously, the Thailand trip does have higher physical demands. You're in an airplane for 27 hours, so there's that by itself, plus heat, humidity, walking a lot, not air conditioning isn't always available. Clean water isn't always available. So there are certain things to take into mind with a bigger international trip in a developing country. So for that group, obviously, it's a little more limited physically of who would be able to go. The domestic trip, it's more open. So it's because I believe there is something that most people would be able to do. So if you're able to make, a long drive, it's a 7 or 8 hour drive. If you're able to, stay up for most of the day and walk around a little bit and help, with various things, like even if you're able to work at the thrift store all day, that level of work and energy might be able to be done there. But that is something to keep in mind for yourself is, do I feel like I could make a mission trip and be something that adds to the group goals and what we're trying to do? It's something for you to decide.
Pastor, if we go ahead and plan a trip, what do you think the monetary cost would be for each individual to go on these trips, and how can we raise that money?
So that's a good question. When we think about missions, there's kind of 3 ways to be involved in missions. Obviously prayer is number 1. Everybody should be praying for missionaries and mission involvement. We already talked about that. There are some who can maybe go on a short-term mission trip. There are missionaries who are going long-term or even for a career. So we pray, we go, and we also give. So pray, give, go. So you're talking about the giving part, the financial part of giving. And Jesus said you got to count the cost. So if you're going to go on the mission trip, I do believe you should have some skin in the game. It shouldn't just be a free trip. So raising some of the funds necessary should be part of your responsibility, but that doesn't mean that other people can't pitch in. So that would mean as a church, we could do some fundraisers. I know it's been suggested we do a golf tournament. There's somebody in the church who has a lot of experience running golf tournaments for charities, and there's maybe a bake sale, a pie auction. There's lots of different ways we could do people could just donate or send letters out to friends and family members and other places asking for, little financial donations to help fund the trip. So there's different ways that we could do that. If we do a fundraiser as a church, let's say we did a golf tournament or we did a bake sale, the funds would be distributed between those who participate in the fundraiser. Who are going on the trip. So everybody's got to have some skin in the game. They got to do the work to earn the money to help offset the costs. So there will be some stipulations with that. But the cost for obviously the domestic trip, the Georgia trip, would be much less than the overseas trip. And the biggest difference is going to be transportation costs. So the Georgia trip probably going to be $600-700 per person for a week, and some of that would be offset again with fundraisers. And then the overseas trip is probably going to be the $2,000 to $3,000 range per person, which I know is a lot. The flights alone are about half of that. So there's just no way around. It takes a lot of money just to get to Thailand. Once you're there, it's pretty affordable, but it's just the getting there. So, and again, fundraisers would help with that. And I think accountability is big. I'll tell you, my podcasts seem to go longer than anybody else's because I tell a lot of stories. So my previous church, they did a missions fund where they helped people go on mission trips. The church actually had money set aside for that, for people to go on mission trips. And part of the requirement was they had to come back and tell the church what they did, what they experienced, and I think that's good. So one time we had this couple went on a mission trip to Peru, came back, and in the report they're like, oh, here's the restaurants we went to, and here's the beach we sat at, and here's pictures of our hotel, and that was the whole report. And we're like, dude, we just paid for their vacation. So that one was a vacation. So we're like, okay, we got to change the policy where it had to be an actual mission trip. So these two trips that we're talking about are actual mission trips. They're not vacations. We'll have fun. We'll be together. And I think missions work is actually a lot of fun. And it's a great way to build relationships and make connections. So it's not like it's hard work and toil and stress the whole time, but it is work. It's serving, and it's getting together, getting up early and figuring out what we're going to do for the Lord that day. And so, like we've said all along, we got to get out of our heads that, oh, this is a glorified vacation. That is absolutely not the case. It's an opportunity to serve the Lord at a new level. And I promise you, everybody, if you've never been on a mission trip, find somebody who has, say, hey, tell me about your mission trip. And their face will light up. They'll say, oh, I have so many stories of memories. Maybe it was even 20 years ago, but they still have, oh man, they remember it like yesterday. So it makes kind of an indelible impression when you go on those trips, and that kind of you carry with you really for the rest of your spiritual journey. It becomes a spiritual mountaintop, a high point. So that's why we do them. So yeah, there's different ways that we would raise funds, and there's different costs involved. But I think think of it like an investment, not so much like, oh, I got to pay $600 for this trip. It's more of I get to do this investment, and I can start saving up a little bit now and start fundraising now, to where later I have this spiritual investment that's worth it in the end.
Well, I thank you for coming out and doing this video today, Pastor. I think it's valuable information for our church. When do you anticipate that we may have another get-together to discuss when we might put a mission trip together?
See, now you're going to pin me down. You're going to ask me, when are we actually going to do this? We've already had a few meetings where we narrowed it down from a near international trip, like in the Caribbean or something, to something domestic, okay? So now we need to start planning. We know we've narrowed it down to Georgia. So we need to start thinking dates and preparing for it. So sometime this fall, probably in around September, we'll have our next meeting, and we'll start having regular meetings because we got to do a little bit of training and prep to prepare ourselves. The actual trip will probably take place late spring, early summer. So we're looking at that, figuring out the dates still. So as far as when, we'll keep you posted, but soon enough we'll start having those meetings and kind of. I wanted to get through the summer where everybody's kind of traveling and busy before we start planning actual monthly or whatever meetings, regular meetings. So we'll start that here in the next few weeks. But yeah, it's going to be great. And thank you for this opportunity. And if you're watching and you stuck around for the whole podcast, I want to thank you for watching. And I want to encourage you to prayerfully consider joining us and doing setting aside a week or a long weekend. When I say long weekend, maybe it's like 5 or 6 days or a whole week. We'll see. But set aside some time to join us on a mission trip. I promise you, it's always a rewarding thing spiritually. So I want you to prayerfully consider that. And thank you for joining with us. And those of you who know you can't go, maybe prayerfully consider supporting those who can. And that's something to pray through. And God already knows what we're going to be doing. And so maybe we just kind of lift things up to Him and ask for His will to be done. So anyway, thank you guys again for watching this podcast. Thank you, Joe, for inviting me to be part of it. And since this is election season, I'm Andrew Carrington. Well, I'm Andrew Carrington, and I approve this message.